Good afternoon. Today marks the 5th community point of distribution for food that has been coordinated by Delaware County. To begin, what is a point of distribution? Well, a point of distribution, or POD, is where the general public goes to pick up emergency supplies following a disaster like this COVID-19 pandemic. The need for a POD is based on the lack of infrastructure to support normal distribution of food, water, or other essential supplies. A POD should accommodate vehicle, pedestrian, mass transit traffic, or a combination of all three. As you can see, a POD operation is complex. There are several things we have done before this disaster to avoid problems and establish a smooth-running POD like this one. Foremost in planning is to identify potential locations. We select sites based on population density. We look at traffic patterns. We ask, will this POD location cause a traffic jam? And are there frequent or sharp turns included? And can large semi-trucks get in and out of the location? Another step in planning is designing the POD layout. The first question to ask is, how large of a POD is it that we need? Then, how will supplies be distributed? How much should each person get? A general quantity rule is each person or personal vehicle receives enough for a household of 3. While we partner with Second Harvest Food Bank, we are distributing quantities for multiple families per vehicle to maintain a maximum efficiency in our PODs in Delaware County. Again, we look at the traffic pattern. What is the best location? Will emergency response vehicles have easy access should we need them? Well in advance of our project, we look at equipment and personnel requirements. Staffing is as important to success as finding the right location. We prepare to manage volunteers you never expected to appear by engaging our COAD committee and COAD chairman. COAD stands for Community Organizations Active in Disaster, and that local group meets with the emergency management officials on a bi-monthly basis every year. Yes, there's a lot to think about. Our success is measured by meeting the public's needs. That's why we emphasize the importance of planning. With a developed strategy and coordinated effort, our community will get those life-saving commodities quickly and effectively. We take into account public needs, infrastructure capabilities, and what resources we will need and have before announcing a POD location to the public. The disaster may have created limitations in communications, equipment, transportation, or personnel for some. Residents are dealing with enough difficulties, so we're careful not to add false hope to the list, so we maximize our efficiency with these PODs in Delaware County. So here's how our POD team is structured. The POD team consists of a manager, a loading team, and a support team. Our POD manager is Jeff Lacey, a retired police officer and EMA volunteer. Yes, that's right, Jeff is volunteering for our community.
I'm Jeff Lacey with EMA. I'm the POD manager. Today's gone really great. I'm not sure what the car count is yet, but it's quite a bit. We couldn't do this without the National Guard and, of course, the COAD volunteers. Without them, them, it wouldn't be doable. It's been great today. It's run really smooth so far. So we've done about 1.5 of these parking lots today.
Hey guys, we're going to shut these 2 down. We're going to send everything to here.
Roger.
Cool.
Roger that. Ma'am, last 2 lanes. All the way down to
The manager is responsible for everything at the POD: staffing and supply levels, supply chain flow, safety, and after reporting. Under the direction of the manager, the loading team conducts loading operations. They keep the vehicles moving safely through the line. The support team resupplies, unloads bulk commodities, and sustains staff operations, including rest areas and trash removal. Today, the support team includes Adam Grimes and Cliff McKee from the Emergency Management Agency.
I'm mostly helping out with stuff and helping volunteers like coffee and snacks, and occasionally we'll help on the line or traffic as well. Just kind of helping out in First or Second Harvest Food Bank. So this is the technical support unit, and it contains a lot of our rehabilitation supplies. So for example, if we have a structure fire, we'll lay out snacks and have some water, Gatorade for firefighters, stuff like that. But we also bring it out to events like this where volunteers are spending their time that have been out here for a while, and they want some refreshment.
Safety at the pod site is paramount. We inspect our work areas daily, wear proper gear, and report any incidences immediately. Each local emergency management agency has different issues to consider. You can see why planning ahead is so vital for our pod operation and our community's recovery here in Delaware County. The United States Army Corps of Engineers has developed a typing standard for pods, which we have also adopted. Type 3 pod is the smallest. It's 150 by 300 feet, a staff of at least 19 supporting personnel, and between 1 and 3 loading points with a vehicle lane. This pod can serve up to 5,000 people per day. Here is an actual Type 3 pod that we are witnessing. A Type 2 pod is larger. It has a staff of at least 34 people, and that pod can serve between 5 and 10,000 people a day. And the largest, a Type 1, has a staff of at least 78 support personnel. These are typically used in large metropolitan areas and serve between 10 and 20,000 per day. So here's the process for participating in a pod. A vehicle enters the pod through a 12-foot wide lane marked with traffic cones. The traffic controller stands at the front where everyone can see him or her and signals the vehicle to proceed and stop. Once everyone stops, the traffic controller announces to load. The loaders load supplies into the car and then step back and say clear. The traffic controller visually verifies that everyone has cleared the line and a hand signal to the driver, and then the next car can enter the line and the process repeats. The pod manager then monitors the burn rate to keep the supply chain flowing. The consumption rate is reported to the local emergency management office each day. Once the disaster winds down, the inventory reports validate costs and are used to try to recoup costs from the federal government when possible. When recovery has reached a point where the local community can sustain itself, the pod will close. The local emergency management agency, the property owner, and the public usually have a 24 to 36 hour notice before pod operations shut down. We have a plan in place where to send anyone who shows up after a closing. Some people may still need help. You can find our local food pantries and food giveaway locations at dcema.com at the food resources link provided in the notes of this video as well. This was an overview of the pod mission currently underway here in Delaware County. Our community is counting on volunteers just like you to be able to get life-saving resources to them. We are in need of groups and individuals to assist with loading and unloading of food at these pod sites. Volunteers will be given appropriate protective equipment and training at the site and must be able to lift moderately heavy objects. If you would like to volunteer, questions about volunteering can be directed to Delaware County Emergency Management at 747-7719. Thanks for watching our video today.